style. Now, as you could just tell from watching the beginning of this film, I was in a canoe. Now, canoes are very interesting little boats. They seat 2 or 3 people, maybe even more. Now, with a primitive campsite, you can either hike in or paddle in or whatever floats your boat. Now to my supplies. As you can see, I have 2 types of rods here. I've got my average, normal, I always have rod that's just an open-faced reel. And my special one that I have is a fly rod. Now, fly fishing is a very cool type of fishing. It's got a different reel, got a different line, all sorts of different line. And it's got a very light little lure, I guess you'd say, at the end. Now this is called a fly. Now fly fishing, what you do is you just whip the fly on top of the water and the fish will jump up, sort of like eating bugs in their natural habitat. But I'll get more to that later. And I've got my hatchet here, a real cool little hatchet. And I'll use this for cutting up wood for fires. Now, inside my pack, I've got all sorts of cool stuff. That includes paracord, it includes different cool little fire starter things. But another thing with primitive camping is you're out in the wilderness, there's bears and raccoons and armadillos and all sorts of little guys that'll get into your food and eat it. So, I'm gonna take my food, I'm gonna make it into a bear hang, which is hang it up in a tree so that I can eat the food before the animals do. So, let's get bear hanging. Now, in this part of Texas, I don't really have to worry about bears, but I'll still have to make a bear hang. What I do have to worry about is raccoons and armadillos and other stuff. But what you want to do with your bear hang is get a sack, a bag, something pretty tight. Got to make sure it's something strong, but what you want to do is you got to put all the food that you have, all the trash, basically anything with food residue on it, in here. So you're gonna need to have a pretty long piece of paracord tied to the bag so you can have one heavy object on one end for propelling the string over the tree onto a really high branch, and it'll come back down, and then the other end will be tied to your food. And you'll just pull it up like a pulley system, and the food will go higher and higher and higher, and you'll tie it to a solid tree or anything that's on the ground to keep your food nice and safe up in the air. Now, if you are in an area with bears, you got to be careful with these things. I advise you keep it at least 200 yards away from your tent, probably even more, because if those bears come walking along, they're super hungry and they're looking for some food. They'll see this food, they'll try to get it, they'll get frustrated, and they'll be even more hungry because they were expecting the food. So they'll look around, what else can I eat? Now, 5 feet away is your tent. What do you think they're gonna go after? Yeah, that's not gonna end well. What you wanna do to the end is tie something heavy, a rock with some edges that you can keep it in, or maybe even a big stick. If you're really good at throwing, then you'll be able to make it over in the first time. Usually it takes a few tries though. Some people use their shoes. I advise not using your shoe because your shoe is pretty important and you don't want to get it stuck in a tree. But now, the hanging of my bear hang. You guys ready to go for a ride? Okay, hold on tight. Whoa, you guys almost got stuck. So now that I'm in the middle-ish area of the lake with my canoe, you gotta be careful because canoes are pretty tipsy. You gotta watch the waves, depending on like how severe they are, which way they're coming from. And once you find a good spot to tie off your canoe with some rope onto a tree, as you can see there are lots of trees everywhere sticking out the water, then you'll be able to fish. Now I'm just using a normal little cool little rattle trap here, and I'm going after bass. Now I have caught white bass, white striped bass, hybrid bass on these before, so we'll see if we'll have some luck today. The bait that I'm using right now is just supposed to sit on the bottom. What it is these weird little worm looking dudes. It's supposed to represent shad guts, like the shad, the fish. And what it does is it soaks in this liquid down here. And the liquid is scented, and it's meant for catfish. So what catfish do when they swim around is the way they find food is really based off of scent. So they'll swim around smelling for something real gross and they'll eat it. So catfish basically eat almost anything. So the scent on those little shad guts will pick up the catfish. And I've also got some other catfish bait. If you ever get catfish bait, I advise you don't smell it. It's usually horribly disgusting. But that's what the catfish like, so that's what I'll use because I'm not really having any luck with the bass right now. So now I'm going to introduce you to fly fishing. Now as you can see, it's a different rod, it's more of a spool, and it's very loose. See, you can pull the line out, and if you look at the types of line, there's all sorts of different kinds. As you can see, this is like monofilament type stuff. There's the amnesia line, and then the fly line right here. To connect the different types of line, they usually use a surgeon knot is a good type of knot. Now also with the lure, most of the lures are real small. They sort of look like little tiny feathery bugs, as you can see here. And there's two different types of flies. There's the wet fly and the dry fly. And the difference is pretty obvious. The dry fly stays on top. The wet fly usually goes underwater. And they range in different sizes. Mine's pretty small. It's for trout or bass. When you're out fly fishing, you gotta have room on both sides of you to be able to go back in your cast and forward in your cast. And a cool way to remember the angles that you want to cast at is if you imagine you are casting on the face of a clock. You're going to go from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, over and over until you're out where you want to be. And with the cast, what you're going to do is start out by pulling a bunch of line out, and you're going to want to have the fly line at the end of the rod. And you're going to really focus on casting the fly line rather than the lure, because the lure is amazingly lighter than the fishing line. So it's a very interesting type of fishing. When you want to go out fly fishing, an important thing to remember is your waders. Now, waders just keep you dry when you're out walking around in the water, but you got to be careful because these things do fill up with water if you get too far out. And one, it can be cold, and two, it could possibly drown you. So you got to be really careful with them. But a good reason that you'd like to go fly fishing is, so these are high pressured waters like this where everyone casts out lures, these big things, trying to catch the bass. So the bass sort of learn and adapt, thinking, okay, I shouldn't really bite this because it hurts, it's killed some of my friends. So they sort of learn. So what they do is they resort to feeding off of little bugs on top of the water, just like this little guy. Like dragonfly nymphs, mosquitoes, anything that lands on top of the water. Even the big bass will feed off of them, especially in the summer. They'll come up and eat them. And I am just starting to learn about fly fishing. I'm trying to gather as much information as I can. If you have any tips or pointers or see me do something wrong, just go down in the comments and let me know. This is a lot harder than it looks. But I'll get it one of these days. So, one really cool thing about state parks is that you can rent canoes from them. And one not so cool thing about state parks is that you gotta bring them back. So, I got two choices for when I bring it back. On the day that it's due, there is a winter storm watch, so it'll probably be below 20 degrees. So I can either choose to paddle it in that morning, and the lake has a possibility of being frozen over. And it probably wouldn't be too nice to be out here in that cold, and it might be a little breezy even, maybe even snow. So that's my first choice. On the day before it's due, which is tomorrow, there's supposed to be 40-mile-per-hour winds. So I either have the choice of freezing my butt off and possibly not being able to get on the lake, or trying to paddle this thing across without flipping in 40-mile-per-hour wind and 7-foot waves. So I decided that I'm gonna take the canoe back today while the water's calm and hike the mile back in to the primitive site. This was really cool and fun while I had it, but unfortunately, the weather's not gonna work out with bringing it back. So, now for fire starting. Now, when you're out primitive camping, it's always good to have a fire, whether it's to cook stuff, heat stuff up, or even keep you warm. So, a cool little fire starter, it's easy, homemade, is just an empty toilet paper roll with one side stuffed with steel wool, and one side with dryer lint, or belly button lint if you're very unhygienic. But what you gotta do is just take the 9-volt, and if you didn't know, if you put a 9-volt to steel wool, it lights up like that, starts on fire. So we've got a cool little pocket in here that we can just stick it in to there, and then we'll light it up, and the lint will start on fire. Lint is very flammable. Like if I use my flint striker, it'll light up like that, and it's an easy fire starter. So if you try this out and the 9-volt doesn't work, you can always resort to the flint striker, because it's also a very easy way. So I'll just set that in there, light it up with the 9-volt, and if you've got too much steel wool in there, you can take some of that out. But it's always fun to experiment with different fire starters. If you look inside of survival books, there's all sorts of cool different ways. It's always fun to look. There we go. Oh, gonna keep going. Okay, there we go. When you're in the tent at night, it gets pretty cold, especially during the winter. So what you're gonna do is need to sleep with a hot bladder. Now, I don't mean drinking boiling water and having a really hot bladder, then having to get up in the middle of the night and have a really hot pee. No, I mean having one of these guys. Now, this is a bladder. It can withstand some really high temperatures. They last a long time, they're really cool. But what you gotta do is you gotta heat up some water over the fire, and then you just pour it on. So let's get pouring hot water into a hot bladder in. Now, another tip when you're boiling water, a lot of people, when they go to boil the water, they'll set it down and they'll put the handle down like this. Now, as you see, my handle is up, because if I were to pick up the handle from down here, it would burn my hand. So you gotta be careful, always keep it up here, so it's nice and cool. Okay, Okay, so I found a good little area with 2 stumps. One of these is really stabilized, the other one is a fallen log, so it's able to move like that. But what I'm just gonna do is move the log onto this little solid part right here to hold it steady while I pour. Obviously take the cap off. And this pan is really hot down in this area, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hike up my sleeve so I'm able to tip the base. Just grab the handle. Make sure it doesn't burn. Okay, we're good. Maybe switch hands. Okay, now again, this is going to be super hot. It's pretty messy. It's not a big deal since the water is taken out of the lake. It's right down there. It doesn't have to be very sterile water because obviously I'm not going to drink it. But what you're going to do is just take it out, and you're going to be careful because it is very, very hot. And before you put this bladder into the tent, make sure you dry it off because it's very likely that you will spill water all over it. You can see it's pretty wet. Make sure the cap is tight because the last thing you want is to wet your bed with your hot bladder. But I'm gonna go put it under the mini layers, particularly the layer that I will be all cuddled up in my cocoon in. But I'll go put this in right now so my blankets will be warm when I get in.
Well, that was an interesting night's sleep.
Okay, you guys, so I was hiking along and I came across this cool little 14 karat gold, super shiny, worth millions of dollars little mushroom here. It's really cool. I've never come across one of these little guys before, but I'm gonna keep moving. Okay, you guys. So, I'm out here down by some watery type area, and I want to show you a cool little thing called a filter straw. Now, a filter straw is a straw that filters. Obviously, it's in the name. But the filter straw is a straw that will give you clean water from almost any water resource. Now, the reason I say almost any is because if you go to some stagnant pool with a dead deer lying in it, it's probably not going to filter it out very well because there are very many parasites in stagnant water. And you can get something called Giardia. Now, Giardia is basically the Hershey Squirts. And if you don't know what the Hershey Squirts is, it's a fun term for diarrhea. Now, diarrhea can easily lead to dehydration because it uses up so much fluid from your body. If you're in a survival situation or even primitive camping, it can get dangerous. So, when you're primitive camping, you want to bring as much clean filtered water in as you can. But if you do run out, some last resorts are boiling the water, iodine tablets, but with iodine tablets, I would suggest bringing along fruit punch mix or whatever to put into your water because iodine does make it taste not so good. And the filter straw. The filter straw is claimed to be 99% effective, but there's a reason it's 99%. There's always that 1%, so you've got to be your own judge. Refreshing. What's up, you guys? So, this was a crazy episode, super cool. I finally got to try canoeing in an episode. That was really fun, especially when there's no waves. Sadly, I did have to take it back a little bit early due to the crazy Texas weather, because it'll be sunny one minute and super cloudy and windy the next. But it is a really cool experience to go canoeing. I hope you guys try it out. But my favorite part of canoeing was when I was bringing it back. The water was real still. It looked like glass, and you could see the birds flying by in the sunset. It was real cool, and you could just coast along, just barely drift, and you didn't have to paddle, and you were still moving. And what's really cool is when you paddle, there's little tiny water tornadoes behind your paddle. But I also got to see a raccoon sleeping up in a tree. He was real cool. He reminded me of my ferret, how he was all laid back and relaxed with his belly showing. And I got to hear all sorts of cool little animals in the forest. Got to eat all sorts of fun meals over the campfire. Perimeter sites are really cool because they're farther away from other sites. They're really spread out, so you aren't near other people as much. And I hope you guys get to try out camping in the cold, because yeah, it's cold, it's chilly, but sometimes that's the best kind of camping because you have the whole park to yourself. But I've got to get going. I've got to hike in the extra mile to get out of here because I did have to take the canoe back. So, got to throw my pack on with all my gear. Well,